I'm gonna be honest. As a company, how do you fumble this? How do you fold this in the worst possible way, right? This is a person, much less a character, you don't fumble at all. Arguably the face of VTubing for a long ass period of time, and still probably arguably would probably say one of the more definite faces of all VTubing. But when it comes down to it, they fumbled the bag, and Gura's now going to graduate. And I'm kind of like surprised by it in terms of not of the graduation itself, but surprised that Hololive just let this happen, right? Now, granted, we don't know exactly what the details is, and we probably never will. But at the same time, it is just like, what the hell caused this? What is causing all of these kind of graduations within Hololive? What's causing these problems recently? Because this ain't anything new. It's been going on for a little minute. I think Fauna had this issue with management, and I think Mume had this issue with management. So what the hell is actually going on? Really, all we could just sit here and do is just kind of speculate on it and kind of just give a best guess as to what could potentially be the idea behind it. And I've seen a few takes that I feel like make sense, and there's some that I don't really agree with. All I know is, if you're a Gawr fan or a Hololive person, this probably is the worst day for you, honestly. What was the sort of deal that you couldn't just keep Gura around? What was it that you had an argument with? What was the screw up? What was it, Gura herself, or was it the management team? Like, again, we don't necessarily really know, but when you see this sort of thing happen 3 times with the same sort of reason, then it's kind of like, okay, there is definitely something weird going on here. One of the reasons that people have thought that maybe this is happening is because, oh, Gura's kind of maybe sick or something like that, which I don't think that's the case. I think that's a cop-out case, if I'm going to be honest, and if it is true, then, you know, hopefully she gets better soon. But still, nonetheless, I don't think that's the case for her to just dip off and leave like this. I don't think so. I also don't think Hololive is like crazy as hell and being weird as hell like Ninja Sanji is, like a black company or whatever. I don't think that's the case, because I feel like we would have heard way more crashing out over there than we have. So I don't think that's really how that is. But you never really know. But still, I don't think that's the case either. But one good explanation as to why this could be the case, and one I think that is pretty damn, or at least would make sense, maybe to a certain extent, is maybe it's because the whole idol thing and what they're asking for was getting a bit too much, and that's why it had to end, essentially. And maybe that is the case, and I can kind of see that if that is, because you gotta realize idol culture in Japan is very much different than how it is literally anywhere else. Idol culture is intense over there. You can't do, there is so much restrictions that an idol can do. There is, you know, so much that they have to put into it, their energy, basically their whole life into it, you know, and it's just a lot of crazy stuff that goes into it that honestly, if you ain't built for that, or you ain't ready for all that type of stuff, you're not really gonna like it that much. You're not gonna really sit here and want to deal with that as much, nearly as much, and it kind of just straight up sucks, you know, when you get hit with something like that, and what the expectations is. And very much that could be a valid reason as to why maybe he just got to a point where it's a bit too damn much, and that's essentially could be a reason as to why Gura has to graduate now. Or it could just come down to the fact that, if I remember correctly, Cover Corp or Hololive or whatever became like a publicly traded place, and maybe it has to do with that, which doesn't necessarily come out as a giant surprise, especially when you look at some of the stock stuff too that has happened recently, because it had a massive dip off. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie, that don't happen for no reason. Like, considering the fact that certain members knew Gura was gonna probably go ahead and graduate and just, you know, not necessarily bother with this anymore, and the stock dip off well before the whole ass like live stream of Gura kind of talking about the whole graduation stuff, it kind of just shows you that something bad was happening. Something bad had happened, and they just, and the stockholders just found out, and they just like, oh hell no, we gotta get out of here right now because this ain't good, or something of the sort like that, right? And so that kind of already hinted that, yeah, something bad is happening, we just don't know what. And until we got hit with the whole live stream, and then we pretty much already could guess what the hell this is. Case in point though, Gura just not necessarily going to be around here for long. She's going to have her last live stream on, I believe, May the 1st. So yeah, got very much times to kind of spend with the character, but at the very same time, it's not necessarily all that bad. For people that might be thinking, oh, this is it, this sucks, this is ass, but it ain't really all that bad, because you can probably easily find her other like streaming accounts and her streaming persona if you just look for 5 seconds. And really, this kind of reminds me of that one moment in Dragon Ball The Bridge where essentially everybody cried that Goku died, but then she just like, why do y'all care?
It's over.
What?
Goku could not escape the explosion. Namek is gone, and so is he.
No. Goku, no! No!
Why do you care?
What?
Why do any of you care? Are you forgetting the whole reason that they went to Namek in the first place? Now we have 2 sets of Dragon Balls.
Well, yeah, but you make it sound like death has no consequence.
It really doesn't.
Literally. That's just kind of how it feels. So ultimately, the person behind Gura is going to be just fine. She's going to be just fine and just alright. Possibly it will be best for her too to kind of just go out her way to just start streaming off of that as well, because she already has a very loyal audience that will probably just follow her from there to there, and that's just gonna be how it is, you know. So it's not really like we've lost something. I mean, we have lost something. We lost the character, but not the person itself. And I fully believe that she will, you know, go back to streaming when the time comes and things will be perfectly fine. I think what this also shows plenty of people as well, that if someone like Gura could get taken down, or at least someone like her can just graduate and, you know, they basically let their biggest popular, or at least one of their most popular, you know, corporate VTubers just dip off like that, it kind of goes to show you that the company and corporate VTubing is not the end-all be-all. Like, it's still very much, you know, something that you can not necessarily have anymore and all that type of stuff. Sure, you can have a pretty big jump to your career as a streamer and stuff like that, and that's perfectly fine, but is it like the end-all be-all? Like, if you're stuck in the indies, oh, should you be jealous at the corporate heads? Not necessarily, because you can still hit those limits when you're in the indies as well. Just because you're in, you know, you see people in like the companies and stuff like that, doesn't necessarily mean that it's raps for you or you got no chance. Everybody pretty much has a chance. And to keep it very much a stack, when you see, you know, a big streamer like this dip off from a company, it kind of just tells you that, okay, so maybe not being in a company means, oh, you get everything and everything's gonna go right all the time and the management gonna be behind you and all that type of stuff. They'll be behind you to an extent, but probably not to every little thing, because again, look what's happening to Gura right now. So again, just being in a VTubing company doesn't necessarily mean everything's gonna be perfect, sunny days from here on out, because that's not gonna be how that works essentially, right? Especially a Japanese company with how they treat idols and take it very seriously and stuff like that. So it's not gonna be an easy time. And just, I guess, kind of to end things off, I'll talk about Gura for a minute, because this is a substantial loss. Whether or not she goes to a different, you know, avatar after this and whatever, this is still a pretty substantial loss, because again, Gura was like the face of Hololive, much less the face of VTubing, if we're gonna be absolutely honest. And it's just gonna absolutely suck to not see this character be used anymore in any shape and form, because, you know, damn well they're not gonna use this character, you know, and it's kind of gonna suck. And if they use that character for anything else, I feel like for a lot of people it's going to be in bad taste, which really they kind of put themselves in a corner now. And I feel like a lot of people that watch Hololive for Gura is pretty much going to dip off the platform of Hololive because of what has happened. And once she basically graduates, that's going to be it. I expect tons of toxic nonsense when it comes down to it. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people start shitting on Hololive harder because of this decision and all this stuff like that. Like, it feels like something that is just going to happen. I can kind of foresee it happening without even having future sight or future vision or whatever the hell you want to basically call that shit. Like, this was just a move that was going to cause people to crash out crying or crash out in some other shape or form. Regardless, it just is what it is. A situation like this is very much kind of just hard to deal with, right? Especially with people, liking her for over the years and all the stuff that she's done, crazy antics and all this stuff. So, like, it's just something that you can't necessarily just sit here right off and just be like, all right, up to the next thing, because that's a lot of time to be put into really one person and build a community around that person, only for that person to not necessarily be here anymore because of shenanigans behind the scenes. It's a bit rough, honestly. So, it does very much indeed suck. Plus, if I'm going to be frank, which that's not going to be the case because my name is Shay, but when it comes down to it though, it's kind of like seeing another pillar of YouTubing kind of just dip off too, right? Because here's the thing, we had Kazuna Ai, who started this shit and really just showcased that VTubing is possible. Then you have Melody to come through and show you the limits of what VTubing can go through when it comes to NSFW stuff and things sort of like that, and push it out to the west. But then Gura comes through, hit that already spreading, message of VTubing to the west way further than anybody possibly ever thought. And that's just kind of what Gura is. Honestly, if we wouldn't have her around, I feel like VTubing wouldn't be what it is today, and I feel like it wouldn't necessarily have that same weight if Gura didn't really exist in the first damn place. I'm just gonna be absolutely honest. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, personally for me too, it was just nice to see that the one damn VTuber that was on top of the world over basically pretty much anybody in the EN space for a good chunk of time was a damn lolly. I'm not gonna lie. And I also very much like that, Gura had her little secret clapbacks behind people that were talking mad shit about her model and the things that she liked in her character, and she had like little low-key clapbacks in the beginning of her career. It was amazing, by the way, and it was absolutely effing fantastic. So to see her kind of just had that clapback side at times is very nice. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Plus, there's tons of other things that she has done that I haven't caught up with, obviously, because I've been watching her on and off, but still, she's just really damn good, really damn great. And again, when she goes to her other avatar, whenever the hell she decides to do that, it's gonna be a good time over there too, right? It's just ultimately going to be a good ass time. And if you want my honest opinion, I don't even think, Gura, when she goes to her next avatar, I don't even think she needs to join an agency. I think she could just rock that shit by herself, because 9 times out of 10, people are gonna know who the hell Gura is at the end of the day, right? They're gonna know who she is or what next avatar she'll jump to. So I very much we see a comeback in some shape and form like we never seen before when it comes down to the VTubing space, because how could you not? This is, again, literally someone that was well in reach of 5 million subs on her own channel. Ultimately, just because, the graduation, that's not going to happen. But still, she was going to get to that point given enough time. But if she was able to do that as Gura, imagine the nonsense she can do without being Gura and just all that sort of stuff too. Like, she's basically going to be doing this shit on her own, yes, but at the very same time, it's going to be something good for her to be kind of just having that for herself outside of just the Gura character. So ultimately, I feel like everything will be fine. It's going to be a painful period still, because Gura was still like the main thing that people have known about this person, and obviously has inspired a lot of people to join up on VTubing and do stuff like that. So it's gonna suck, no question about it. But ultimately, I don't necessarily think this is a really bad thing. Plus, if anything, she can kind of go at her own pace now with her kind of, leaving the Gura character behind. She can kind of, hell, if it is some health reason, or she's just really stressed out of stuff about how to carry on like all these people and whatever, literally all she could do is just pull a Core Kenshin, kind of upload when she wants to, take a break when she wants to, and kind of just have a fun time. It's not going to be nearly as bad as people might think it is, or a lot of people be, sitting here dooming over the news. Again, understandable, I get it, very much so, but at the very same time, at the end of the day, it's not going to be nearly as bad once the future kind of takes hold and, you know, things kind of happen. But still, at the current moment in time, yes, it's again a very unfortunate situation, but it's not going to be all that bad forever. And as far as Hololive go, I'm not gonna lie, they don't got much left, at least when it comes down to, you know, what I be seeing people get hyped over and things of sort like that. You just lost, again, one of your biggest pillars of your company, and to be honest, it's not gonna necessarily be smooth sailing from here. Like, they're not gonna get someone like Gura again. I highly doubt that, right? The only people I can imagine that they have that's still worth a dang and that could still do something is Corone and basically Marine. That's literally the only two people I can think of that still could rock with Hololive and, you know, keep them afloat in terms of successfulness. But outside of that, I don't really see anybody, right? Maybe Calliope. I can see Calliope, but, you know, that just maybe on that side. But that's really about it. As for me personally, as much as Gura, you know, is gone and is going to go and going to graduate and all that stuff, I'm not gonna lie, my hope isn't fully lost in Myth yet. I still have Kiara. For me personally, I still have Kiara. Now, Kiara goes, I'm throwing everything out the window. It is wraps. As long as I still got my Phoenix Queen, it is what it is at this point. You know, it's ultimately, it is what it is, because Kiara just, yes to literally everything. Yes to quite literally everything. Because she is damn near the perfect ass Phoenix I've ever seen, with the perfect cake and all that stuff. But we ain't gonna go into that right now. But the point is, though, overall, Gura, yes, is going to graduate, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the end. And whatever the reason as to why they decided to just, you know, let her graduate and they couldn't reach a sense of an agreement or something like that, I don't know what it is, but they gotta fix that shit. And if they don't, or really it might be too late for them to fix that shit, because I don't know how many people are going to just dip off once Gura dips off. We don't know. So ultimately, you know, it ain't looking good for Hololive in terms of, like, you know, the future and things of sort like that. Outside of maybe their Japan base, outside of that, I don't know what else they got. I really don't, because I'm not gonna lie. Again, if Kirara goes, it's GG's. It is completely GG's. If Ollie goes, now that I think about it, if Ollie's fine zombie self goes, it is super GG's. it is overly GG's for sure. But hopefully that don't necessarily be the case anytime soon, because I don't want to see another departure so soon. I think it's been 7 departures recently, which is a bit wacky now that I think about it, if that's the correct information. So, you know, just, it's a lot of wackiness all over the place. That's really all I can say. But hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification on my outs, also on the socials. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until next time, boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.